of Daniel, those men seem to me very much to err from the truth, talking about the Epicureans, who determine that God exercises no providence over human affairs. For if that were the case, that the world went on by mechanical necessity, this is for you scientists and you black atheists. You're the modern day Epicureans. That the world went on by mechanical necessity, we should not see that all things would come to pass according to his prophecy. Now, as to myself, I have so described these matters as I have found them and read them. But if anyone is inclined to another opinion about them, let him enjoy his different sentiments without any blame from me. Now, I sorta want to read you the breakdown of Daniel. I think I'm gonna read it to you just for the edification. But that was the discourse on the groups, the different sects. A little bit of insight, sharpen your sword a little bit, so sharpen your mind concerning those subjects. So when you read about Yahushua dealing with these different groups, you have a better understanding of the groups and the philosophies that they was following, what was wrong about them, what was right about them. Like I said, I'm gonna come back and do a little extra on this and cutting a little bit of their doctrine, all right, by the scriptures. Now you got a little bit more insight on those different groups, the Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, Epicureans, and Zealots and Sakari. Now, just as a little extra, I'm going to read Josephus's breakdown of the book of Daniel here. Just as an extra, just for edification, man. Why not? It says this about Daniel. He also related that when he stood up, he was shown a great ram with many horns growing out of his head, and that the last was higher than the rest. That after this he looked to the west and saw a he-goat carried through the air from that quarter, that he pushed upon the ram with violence and smote him twice with his horns and overthrew him to the ground and trampled upon him. Now this goes with Daniel. This goes with Daniel chapter 7, I think. Yeah, this goes with Daniel chapter 8. This goes with Daniel chapter 8. It says this: that he pushed upon the ram with violence and smote him twice with his horns and overthrew him to the ground and trampled upon him. That afterwards he saw a very great horn growing out of the head of the he-goat, and that when it was broken off, 4 horns grew up that were exposed to each of the 4 winds. And he wrote that out of them arose another lesser horn, which, as he said, waxed great, and that God showed to him, that it should fight against his nation and take their city by force and bring the temple of worship to confusion and forbid the sacrifices to be altered for 1,296 days. Daniel wrote that he saw these visions in the plain of Susa, and he had informed us that the Most High interpreted the appearance of this vision after the following manner. All right, this is the breakdown. Daniel chapter 8. Just a little extra, like I said. He said that the ram signified the kingdoms of the Medes and the Persians, and the horns those kings that were to reign in them, and that the last horn signified the last king that he should exceed all kings in riches and glory, and that the he-goat signified that one should come and reign from the Greeks, who should twice fight with the Persians and overcome him in battle, and should receive his entire dominion. That by the great horn which sprang out of the forehead of the he-goat was meant the first king. All right, it's talking about Alexander. And that springing up of the 4 horns upon its falling off and the conversion of every one of them to those 4 quarters of the earth signify the successors that should arise after the death of the first king, and the partition of the kingdom among them, and that they should be neither children nor of his kindred that should reign over the habitable earth many years, because his children, Alexander's children, did not reign after him. It goes on to say this: and that from among them there should arise a certain king that should overcome our nation and their laws, and should take away our political government, and should spoil the temple, and forbid the sacrifices to be offered for 3 years' time. And indeed it so came to pass that our nation suffered these things under Antiochus Epiphanes, according to Daniel's vision. And what he wrote many years before they came to pass, in the very same manner, Daniel also wrote a concerning the Roman government. I already read that. Now I just want to read this last thing to you on that subject about how Alexander actually read our prophecies. It says this. About when Alexander the Great came into Jerusalem. It says this. And when he had said this, talking about Alexander the Greek, and when he had said this to Parmenio and had given the high priest his right hand, the priest ran along by him, talking about Alexander the Great now. And he came into the city, and when he went up into the temple, he offered sacrifice to the Most High according to the priest's direction, and magnificently treated both the high priest and the priest. And when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was the person intended. And as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present, but the next day he called them unto them and bade him to ask what favors they pleased him. So that's the account when Alexander Josephus, when Alexander the Greek read the prophecy in Daniel, and he knew it was talking about him. So with that, brothers and sisters, all right, a little bit more insight on the Pharisees, Sadducees, the sects of the Jews or whatever. It's like Yashima, Church at Carolina. Hope you were edified. Hope you learned something. Barak Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All praise to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. May the Most High God bless you for checking this video out. With that, I'm going to say Shalom, which is peace.